What hobbies pastimes attract the biggest assholes? Story 1. I tried bingo once and won like 2,300. Everyone was so mean. The tension was insane. I thought I was going to get jumped by older ladies with oxygen tanks. I actually felt bad winning. Answer, I've had a similar experience and it ruined it for the people I know. It was the last game on one of the big payout nights and it was like 1,200 at the time. Then when he won, multiple people started crying. One lady came up begging for the winnings to pay her rent. It was really depressing since we were all there to screw around. They even have guards to walk you to your cars. Shouts out to Big Star Bingo in Austin. Story 2. As a photographers. Lots of egos, gatekeepers, self-obsession, etc. Wedding photographers are especially gross. Answer, photographer here. My wedding photographer was absolutely a jerk to me during the booking process. We know some of the same people, but I had never met or worked with him at the time. When I talked to him about booking, he was a smug, egotistical prick, but also the best in town, so I just kind of rolled my eyes and let him flex. On the wedding day, he was magnificently charming. He made my bride feel like a princess. He was cracking up the guests, and of course, he got amazing photos. I could not have been more pleased with the entire experience, and I think about this a lot. Are photographers mostly assholes to other photographers? Do photographers have clients who think they are assholes? Do the spouses of photographers know they married a jerk? Or is that just something they retreat to when they meet students, aspiring photographers and contemporaries? A defense mechanism? A holdover from the days of film when it was as much science as art, and if you were the only one who knew the science, you got the most jobs? Story 3. Equestrian sports bring out some major jerk, especially showing the higher level, the worse it seemed. One example is big lick soaring, literally horse torture painting, caustic chemicals into the leg above the hooves. They then wrap them in plastic to cook the legs overnight. They add action devices like chains into the area while riding. This causes the chain to slam into the sword area, causing horse to yank its leg up to get away from the pain. They have on 8-weighter shoes which yank legs forward, then down quickly, causing an unnatural gait. You cannot create it without soaring. Yes, soaring is illegal and has been since Horse Protection Act of 1970. It prohibits the showing, selling, auctioning, exhibiting, or transporting of soared horses. Yet those shows still happen. On other sides, some of the most compassionate too. People who rescue horses from those conditions. I just woke to find lots to answer. I'm an equestrian too. Answer. Big lick and horse abuse aside, a lot of equestrians are also horribly mean to new equestrians and groom staff. I've been whacked on with a whip. I've been hog-tied by barn owners' daughters who thought it was funny. I've been an unknowing crash test dummy they throw on new horses I couldn't handle at the time. Laughed at when I got hurt, and boarders took my horse, an abandoned mare who sat neglected in a paddock for 4 years before I took her on as a project. And once I got her in a good place, everyone wanted her. To do the shows I already planned and paid for. Grown adults I barely knew said the meanest things to me to put me down, and I was 12, 14 at the time. The only way I'll get back into horses is my own barn in my own backyard. I will never board and deal with that drama abuse again. Story 4. Surfing. From the outside, it seems like a really laid-back group, but oh my God, the pretentious egotism and gatekeeping is off the charts. This might not be the case everywhere, but from where I live, Western Canada, it's a bunch of fudge assholes. Answer. It's sort of a regional thing. Areas with a lot of surfers or not many surf spots are usually full of assholes, especially if you're new to the sport or out of practice. Areas with lower populations or more space for surfers to spread out tend to be a little more relaxed. My little regional town in in Australia has like 6 points and a few open beaches that get decent waves in various circumstances. And the town's population is maybe 3,000 people, except for summer holidays. So the surfers are usually pretty friendly unless you're antagonizing them somehow. Go to the Gold Coast, however, bunch of cunts. Probably Byron Bay too, but Byron sucks regardless, so I don't go there. Story 5. The quilters at Joann's were hardcore and took no guff. I attribute it to having to wait for their cut fabric, then also wait in line to pay. Story 6. Incredibly unpopular but car communities. It is incredibly difficult to find the right car community as a woman, getting dumbed down for not knowing everything, when all I want to do is learn. Answer. I have a side gig working at a company that does track experiences in supercars. The company has quite a few female employees, and pretty much all of them are car people with racing experience. They're all qualified to be instructors, and quite frankly, they're some of the best drivers there. But none of them are instructors. Why? Because so many male customers refuse to listen to female instructors and become dangers on the track. Car people fudge suck. If there's still any lingering doubt the assholeness of car people, browse your cars for a bit, then get back to me. Story 7. Alcoholics Anonymous. Many decent folks wander in, but at the top of the pecking order, it's assholes. Weird, sanctimonious, dictatorial assholes. Answer. Going through NRA, I was in Europe but struggling with insomnia, coming off benzos, joined some US meets via Zoom, no camera, no mic, just to listen. Holy hell. The amount of people 30 years sober who spoke at length about their rock bottom. Honestly, it felt like they were just reminiscing over the good old days, bragging, waxing lyrically about getting messed up. Like that couldn't possibly trigger someone. 20 straight minutes of an uninterrupted tale of debauchery, followed by moderator. Sorry, Mike, that's time. Mike, okay, yeah, so anyway, I'm much better now, thanks to AA. Yeah, thanks for that. How about you talk about getting better and use your 30-year sobriety for that, rather than dominating 3 meetings a week to tell party stories? Narcissistic FKS. Story 8. Scalping reselling for profit, especially anything desired by children like Pokemon cards, video games, toys, concert tickets, tour merchandise, etc. Answer. To piggyback off this, the vintage retro video game collecting community is incessantly toxic these days. Either they're in it for profit or they believe they know everything and act elitist about any given subject in the hobby. I had a lot of issues with video game collectors back in 2015, 2019 especially, and ended up basically abandoning the hobby entirely. You note anything desired by children being impacted negatively, and this is true, I think, because the people who are attached to and obsessive about these particular collecting hobbies tend to be extremely petty and childish themselves. I see a lot of other issues in collecting communities dealing with antiques, but not the same sort of childish mentality that is prevalent in the toy, gaming, TCG communities. Story 9. Golf as a golfer myself. Sometimes people forget that they're people and act as if they're robots determined to ruin everyone else on the course's time. Answer, which is sad, because I golfed with my pa as a kid and a lot of his coworkers. They modeled great golf course etiquette and enforced it on me and each other in equal measure. It was actually one of the first times I was treated like an equal with adults. Golf was one of those places with silly rules I had no issue following because I'm on a golf course. Playing golf. That's already a pretty fantastic place to be. No need to be a male body part or rock the boat. Didn't hurt that the course we played a lot was up in the hills in the Bay Area with peacocks at the fence line on the back nine. In the 90s, that was a decent way to keep 13-year-old me sticking around the putting zoo. Story 10. Honestly, every hobby has its gems and its jerks, but some pastimes seem to have an unusually high concentration of ego magnet personalities. Competitive driving, street racing track days, stock trading bros, gatekeeping music snobs, especially in vinyl or metal circles, CrossFit zealots, and certain corners of gaming communities can feel like they hand out jerk starter packs at the door. It's not the hobby itself, it's the culture of flexing, gatekeeping, or needing to be the smartest, loudest in the room that draws them in. Story 11. As a musician, musicians, the egos, the circle jerking, the painting of opinion as fact, so toxic. Answer, yup, musician here. And yup, I was a jerk in high school. Being the best heavy metal guitarist in the school can inflate your head to obscene proportions. I was the pretentious, pompous, know-it-all bastard that could play every song, every solos, everything. Until I went to college and met a 60-year-old music teacher who could do everything I do, but 10 times better. He took me off my high horse in a hurry. I've been chill ever since. Today, every time I pick up the guitar, I think of him and I stay humble because I know there's always somebody better than me just around the corner. Story 12. Adults that do children's hobbies to the point where they block children from doing them. I want to take a tack hammer to every dickhead adult that buys up Pokemon cards so kids wind up crying. Stuff like that. Like what you want to like, but if you're just doing it to make a profit, feast upon a satchel of Richards. Story 13. Kids not included. Pokemon, I see so many terrible stories of theft, etc. However, there are some awesome folks there too. Story 14. Street racing on public roads. You want to race? Go to a private race circuit. Don't be a jerk that will eliminate innocent pedestrians. Story 15. Male body part measuring contests. Some guys use fake tape measures with different numbers. Then when our sizes are posted in the local newspaper, the numbers are all wrong. Story 16. Car culture, hot rods, restos, etc. They seem okay at first, but it's just a male body part measuring competition. Answer: this is mostly true for a fair bit of car culture that is based on attending car meets and showing off. People will dislike on you for having a nice car and also dislike on you for bringing a car they believe is not worthy. It's not all roses, but things in general tend to simmer down once you get into grassroots motorsports. Somebody's going to give you a high five and give you pointers on how to go fast if you bring whatever car to autocross. Story 17. As a kink enthusiast, BDSM attracts some pretty mind-blowing assholes. I've talked to someone whose dom deliberately gave them an opioid addiction without consent, and the anal stretching community has some pretty big assholes too, I guess. Story 18. This sounds so crazy, gardening. Oh my Jesus Christ, I worked at a garden store for 2 years, and the judgment from these people is insane. For a calming hobby, the practitioners clearly are not calm. Answer: I love gardens. I love plants. I adore buying plants, many of which I end up eliminate, but that's okay. I can buy more plants. But gardening itself fills me with immense rage, literally. The endless weeding and mulching and cleanup, and then you have to do it all over again after some bird shoot plant. Substance seeds all over your carefully weeded paradise. Fudge gardening. Story 19. Dislike to say it because I love them, but you see a lot of toxic behavior in gun circles. Most of the time, people are cool with each other, and we just want to share in the experience of gun ownership. But I think because it can easily be an obscenely expensive hobby, you get a lot of alpha male douchebags who just want to flaunt their money and shoot on other people in the hobby who can barely participate. Answer: truth. My earlier experiences in the gun Reddits were eye-opening. In the R15 sub in particular, a large portion of them are aggressive male body part. You have to spend XYZ amount of money for this or that part, otherwise it's shoot. Certain brands are frowned upon. Questions, depending on the time of day, will be met with nothing but bitterness and hostility. Particularly anything about where to start. They really know how to make getting into a new hobby extra difficult. I took some solace in the fact that my guns get fresh air and sunlight, but theirs are just insanely expensive safe queens. I will say though, there's some very cool people too that have really good advice and some awesome builds. Story 20. Ham radio. Never met anyone involved in that hobby who wasn't some BTK killer looking, get off my lawn type jerk. Story 21. Bourbon bros. Single malt folks are cool. Rum people are tons of fun. Brandy people can be a bit uptight like wine snobs, but they're somewhat open-minded. Bourbon bros are just the loudest, rudest, and most aggressively intransigent group of spirits enthusiasts. Story 22. Unpopular opinion, but Reddit. I've never met a more impatient, angry mob of people than I've encountered on this app. I committed the mortal sin of posting a question once. My God, the entire thread was people being absolute cunts about how I should have read the wiki, use Google, etc. Jesus fucking Christ, people. Calm the fudge down. It's Reddit for fudge's sake, edited for grammar. Story 23. Gaming. Spend any amount of time playing an online game, and you'll likely encounter some of the most vile racist douchebags you can imagine. Story 24. Hi-fi audiophilia. I'm in that space, and everyone knows more than everyone else, and if you don't agree with someone, you're wrong, they're right, and no correspondence will be entered into. I love the hobby, but typically dislike the people. Story 25. The correct answer is every hobby. Seriously, when has anybody ever started a new hobby without being wholly discouraged by the deafening roar of 1,000 gatekeeping veterans screeching dogmatic bullshit over their shoulder because they can't stand to see someone enjoying the hobby incorrectly? Every hobby has people who taught themselves do it for fun and people who seem like they actually dislike it but finally learned all of the correct things to say and won't let anyone forget it. Story 26. BJJ, half the gyms are cults, which is a shame, as it's meant to pull the ego out of people. Not always successful. Story 27. Scuba diving. Too many egomaniacs who believe they're the only person on the planet doing it right. Not to mention the lovely subset of dive masters and instructors who only do this job to get in their students' pants. Story 28. Luxury car collecting, bodybuilding, gym bro culture, crypto trading, extreme sports bragging, or high-end fashions, streetwear hype. Basically, any hobby where people can flex wealth, status, or superiority often draws assholes. Story 29. From what I've seen and heard, pro-level MMA, I think you have to be at least a little self-centered, egotistical to be at that level of fighting. No room for self-doubt whatsoever, but I myself have not been there. If anyone has personal experience on this, please help inform me. Story 30. I used to love playing pickup basketball, and that shoot got ruined. People fighting can't, take a loss, always arguing about nothing. That's the end of a once great life. Story 31. Any hobby community can have a lot of total jerks, but anything with a really significant portion of it being academia or to do with having a lot of knowledge, lol. Story 32. Golf is not even close. If you wanted to make a dent in the world jerk population, take out all the golf courses. Story 33. I say this as a gun owner and avid competitive shooter. Shooting. It's getting better these days as more young people get into it, and the competitive scene has always been better. But walk into any gun shop or shooting range and you're guaranteed to meet at least one crotchety dickhead boomer and one white supremacist. Neither of them are ever good at shooting. Story 34. Gun culture, gatekeepies, bunch of assholes I've ever met. I was military. I know how to shoot. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten shoot or incorrect and unsolicited advice from some jerk at a gun store, shooting range, etc. I've never walked into any other kind of shop where the owner literally tried to talk me out of buying something or insulted me for trying to buy something. Also, a lot of guys will offer to teach people how to shoot and then just hand them a gun and make fun of them while they struggle to figure it out, scream at them when they do something wrong, etc. But then they cry about people not liking guns. Story 35. Dog owners who let their dogs off leash at neighborhood parks, hiking trails, and protected wildlife areas. Story 36. Biking. It varies a lot, but a good general rule is the more spandex is involved, the more a-holes involved. Story 37. Many modern musicians are just the hugest self-centered assholes. Many are decent and pleasant people, but too many are egotistical dickheads, proud of themselves for buying a new PRS. Answer. You know what's weird? The most talented musician I know was actually a male body part, but not about being a musician, just other stuff. He was actually humble-loved, talking about and sharing stuff about music, which was weird because he was as incredibly talented on that front. But other stuff, pretty much everything else, he was such a pompous jerk. So strange. Story 38. Scuba attracts a lot of autistic people who can be very abrasive, but the main problem is that any scumbag moron can become a scuba instructor for $2K. A lot of guys only do it for their ego or because it sounds impressive on a resume. There's basically no money in it, so the stores cut every corner they can, even violating the ridiculously low requirements that exist. None of the stores I know of are run by competent people who also care about customers. They're all on a spectrum in between incompetent and shoot at business. Most of the money is made by selling frequently inferior equipment with 50 margins. Tech divers act like they're so much better than everyone else, and they frequently are, but they also very often act like assholes. Story 39. Motorcycle track days. Less so motorcycle racing. Pretty easy to pretend to be Billy Big Balls on a track day. It's a bit harder at a race meeting when the finishing order and lap times get posted for all to see. Story 40. Golf, without question. Not only is it horrible for the environment with a history gentrification, misogyny, racism, and perpetuating wealth disparity, but it also almost exclusively attracts corporate assholes. Story 41. A certain kind of person that's into music. They get so needlessly pretentious and gatekeep, they will make fun of people for enjoying music that they don't deem as serious enough or good enough. I see it a lot amongst fans of certain acts I like. And of course, these types think that they somehow objectively know what good music is. Story 42. Working out. I'm not saying you shouldn't work out, but I find everyone makes it their personality and looks down on others who don't do it. Story 43. I started a weekly cornhole night at a local social club a few years ago and made the mistake of putting the events on a widely used cornhole app that helps players find local tournaments. What was intended to be a fun, social event where beginners and low-level players would buy in for 10 each and play through the tournament for a whopping payout of maybe 60 per player on the winning team at the end of the night, turned into a semi-pro event where these high-level players would drive from an hour or more away to win the money. These dudes were complete jerk-offs. They'd roll in with a suitcase full of different cornhole bag sets, so they had just the right set for the board conditions. They'd be in their cornhole jerseys, wearing gloves and shooter sleeves, like Allen Iverson. And they mostly wore earbuds the entire time, so they weren't even trying to be sociable. They were all major rednecks, so when they did speak, it was very political. A very MAGA crowd, and the thing bumped into COVID, and when I asked that people don't come to the events if they are showing any symptoms, they decided I was some flaming liberal and wanted to argue and fight. That was the beginning of the end. The locals that were showing up got tired of being used as an ATM, and I got tired of going through the effort of setting all of this up, so I eventually scrapped it. It's a shame too because I love playing the game and would enjoy the competition, but it really wasn't worth the aggravation. Oh, the other shoot thing. When any of the social level players finished in the money, we always tipped out the club and the bartenders and went home with none of the prize money. These pros took every penny. I've seen a lot of them at charity tournaments, and they do the same thing with much larger payouts. I mean, what kind of jerk do you have to be to play in a tournament benefiting pediatric cancer and not give the prize money back to the charity if you win? Story 44. Men's League Softball. A lot of guys take that shoot way too seriously. The Yankees and the Dodgers aren't sending scouts to your after-work softball game. Calm the fudge down. Story 45. Birding is full of assholes who care only about numbers, thinking that seeing more species in a month or year or over time than everybody else means they are better than everybody else. They will bully and harass anybody who has better skills than they do, and it's still very much a hobby for rich whites, so that type tries to push out anybody else. There are also rare species and species that look alike and are hard to tell apart. You will also be bullied and picked apart over those attempts, and it can take years for your correct identification to be admitted as correct by an actual expert out of your region. And then the jerk birders will still never admit that you were right. Story 46. I work in a healthcare field that often caters to trap shooters, target shooters, and hunters. I've never had such a biggest population of assholes in my life. I've worked with all kinds of DRs, cared for prosecuting and district attorneys, military officers, and everyone in between. Shooters are the worst. And the worst part is, the worse they are, the bigger jerks they are. The ones who are amazing and make a living from it and win all kinds of championships, you never know that's what they do. Why does knowing how to shoot a gun make some people such a jerk? Story 47. Competitive gun enthusiasts, crypto bros, conservative men who claim to be Christian but are just masking avoidant narcissistic dysfunction. Story 48. Weekend cyclists. Real cyclists know how to flow with traffic, etc. They don't risk their lives in stupid ways like the weekend warriors. Story 49. You guys need to get into genealogy. Over 10 years doing this, and I have yet to run into a difficult genealogist. Everyone is so helpful. Near Story 50. MMA. Maybe not so much the fighters, but I don't know if you listen to Joe Rogan and wear a tap-out shirt. I just kind of assume you're sort of a douche. So MMA fanboys, to be precise. Story 51. I guess it's any field of endeavor that requires a high level of dedication, but also has interaction with non-adherence. Pursuit of objectives untempered by awareness of others' needs will produce jerk behavior. The greater the interaction, the higher the visibility of jerk behavior. There are probably no more jerk cyclists than stamp collectors as a percentage of their overall numbers, but because cyclists are visible, they garner the bad rep. My hobby, writing fiction, has a huge proportion of assholes. I can practically see the narcissism dripping off them. No one cares, except other writers, and we are few. Story 52. Social media influencers at the gym. Or probably anywhere, but I have only had to deal with them at gym. Very entitled, assume people know who they are and never look the way they do in photos. This includes micro-influencers. Story 53. Amateur radio can have some pretty horrible old guys that just love to harp on the newer dudes for wanting to learn and try new things. Then they wonder why nobody wants to join their club or why they can't make any contacts on 2-mower simplex anymore. Gee, maybe telling someone how stupid they are means they don't want to talk back to you. Story 54. Sports memorabilia and card collectors. Used to be a cool father-son pastime you could do for cheap. Now it's all about scamming, breaks, gambling, money, value, etc., with no passion for the actual sport, team, or athletes you are collecting. Story 55. Having a child in youth sports, especially one they believe has high potential. I want to say especially soccer, but could just be because I've been most involved with that. Story 56. Kink in the lifestyle, swingers, fetishes, kinksters, doms, subs. Check out FetLife. Some of those people are so insufferable. Story 57. Skiing and golf, no question. Step into a pro shop at either place. The most arrogant pricks that you'll ever encounter. Story 58. Photography. So many people who are into it are actually photographers, thinking that they take good pictures just because they own a DSLR or a real camera. Most of them are pretentious hacks who know little about lighting and composition. let alone the workings of their equipment. Story 59. Gaming. You get a bunch of socially maladjusted people on the spectrum in a hobby that doesn't encourage social interaction, and the gaming community is what you get. Story 60. Cyclists leave their garbage everywhere, use amenities without buying anything, take up the roadways. I worked in a small town, and surprisingly, it was the motorcyclists that were the best. Story 61. Cyclists. Hey, Bill. Want to dress in form-fitting shorts and shirts and go get on our 2,500 bicycles and piss off drivers just trying to get home after a long day at work? What's that? Yes, absolutely. Let's find the busiest, windiest road at the busiest time during rush hour that has no shoulder and look at drivers like they're the problem as they get pissed off having to go 30 miles under the speed limit for 10 miles because they can't pass us since the road is so busy. Peak enjoyment. Story 62. Road cycling. Mountain bikers can be douchebags too, but not at the level of road cyclists. Yes, I do both. Story 63. Out of all my hobbies, I'd have to say hiking. 95% of people who hike are normal and chill and nice, but there is a small subset of the community who are total assholes. I'd say most are in the backpacking realm. They are the ones who are the gram weenies that shoot on anyone who doesn't want to go into massive debt for ultralight gear or snap off the handle of their toothbrush in order to be as light as possible. Not everyone wants to have an ultralight setup, and not everyone can afford to have an ultralight setup, but that doesn't mean those people shouldn't go backpacking. There's pretty much a direct correlation between how light a piece of gear is and how expensive it is. Plus, they'll have a whole male body part measuring contest about how light their setups are, and it's absolutely insufferable to have to listen to. Just because you have the world's most uncomfortable pack and a tent that's basically just a thin tarp held up by your trekking poles doesn't make you the one backpacker ever. People hike for different reasons, and believe it or not, some people enjoy comforts like camp chairs and an inflatable pillow because it makes their personal experience better, even though they're carrying a little heavier than others, and none of it makes them beneath you. Story 64. Being a pastor. Some pastors are rare gems of the world. However, being a pastor is a fast track to being on a stage, having the immediate trust over a lot of people, power and influence, etc. It actually draws a disproportionate amount of clinical narcissists when compared to other hobbies or careers. Story 65. Mount Everest. Anyone? Can anyone else agree that high elevation mountain climbers, especially Mount Everest, are, besides the torturous equestrians as I've recently discovered, are literally some of the most entitled, disrespectful FKNG assholes ever to exist? Story 66. Loud rumbling, car, motorcycle enthusiasts, the decibel-busting sound of a muscle car with modified exhaust, or a motorcycle that is loud, especially during 1/2 gears. The sounds from these vehicles disturb the peace and are absolutely unnecessary in traveling from one place to another. Story 67. Fly fishing has an insane amount of elitist assholes. They care more about showing off a 900 reel and a 1/500 rod than they do actually fishing. Story 68. Motorsports cars, motorcycles. Off-road, it's super destructive, and people are hickish assholes. On-road, you have the trashier end of the spectrum with sideshows and takeovers and whatever those massive motorcycle rides are called where you have dirt bikes, wheeling, etc. I can't think of many other hobbies that involve as many assaults, shootings, and innocent people getting hurt from reckless behavior. Story 69. Excessive exercise people who go to exercise classes are either the meanest or nicest people you'll ever meet. Story 70. Street skateboarders. The lack of respect for other people's property is shocking. Also, any hobby that at all gets in the way of people's day-to-day lives. Cyclists, street racers, etc. Take that shoot to somewhere private. Story 71. Someone has already said poker, but doesn't fully explain why. Being good at poker requires an ability to deceive your opponents, so it attracts the worst dregs of society. Story 72. Collectibles and mainly trading cards. From Magic the Gathering to Pokemon, it is getting extreme. It's getting more mainstream, and scalpers are running it along with stores. The no MSRP and everything is now on a secondary market. The stores demanded this so that the customers can't meanie at them for scalping the prices. The prices are all controlled by the vendor and thus artificial. Distributors are now getting into the second market and charging the brick-and-mortar stores more for products. Collector boxes are now selling for $1,000. This is now pull-tab gambling. It is no longer about play. The community has grown toxic and elitist, not including some individuals who don't bathe. You get a combination of competitive freaks who have to win no matter what and Wall Street bros. Some nights you will see people open 1K to 5K worth of packs, just to take the rare cards and leave the bulk of cardboard behind. The trash generated is absurd. Story 73, IDK how this is everywhere else. But my local music scene is filled with some of the most entitled people with overinflated senses of importance. Every venue owner thinks they're running Madison Square Garden, and every band thinks they're the Rolling Stones. Humility is almost non-existent in the scene, and petty drama is inescapable as fragile egos get bruised by the slightest transgressions. Story 74, road cycling. What a bunch of pompous, entitled fucktards. You've been a road cyclist and an off-road trail mountain bike rider. Gave up road biking because people drive like assholes, the assholeness only exceeded by people thinking the public roads are their personal Tour de France. Story 75. Most competitive computer game sports fans, namely for the big ones like football and such. Obviously not all of them, but the masses that riot over their team losing. Pathetic man-child behavior, social media, self-proclaimed influencers and other grifters are the gutter rats of society. Story 76. NASCAR, golf, trophy hunting, bourbon aficionados, podcasting if that can be considered a hobby, sports and muscle car culture, CrossFit. Story 77. We're watching where Iowa were cyclists, but I don't mean the casual let's take the kids out for a nice bike ride. I mean those absolute arseholes who spend the week doing 9-5s in fintech, who suddenly think that because they've spent their bonus on a professional bike, they're Lance Armstrong on the Tour de France, just sitting outside of hipster cafes drinking energy gels. Story 78. Cyclists. They think they own the road and gain confidence in numbers. Edit. They also have this green mentality that because they aren't releasing any pollution, they are far superior to motorists. Story 79. All of them. All hobbies have assholes. And when you think you've met the biggest, no, there's someone bigger. Story 80. Airsoft. A lot of guys somehow can't resist to inflate their ego the second they look like special forces. This gets even worse when dudes that pretend to be tough special forces and actual police officers meet in the field. The police officers think they are better than the rest of us. The only chill guys are actual ex-military and dudes who acknowledge they play soldier, but they are few and far between. Story 81. Sometimes gyms and martial arts. Some people I have seen to go there go for the main reason to be able and wanting to hurt someone in life effortlessly. Pathetic people. Story 82. Yoga. Everyone I know who got seriously into yoga became a massive, preachy twat with some questionable beliefs. Story 83. Golf, gambling, photography, and a good portion of the automotive enthusiasts, honorable mention goes to gun enthusiasts. Story 84. Bicyclists. So much childish judgy, my toy is cooler than your toy gatekeeping, and aggro hostility toward people who don't conform to the unwritten rules. The contrast with the running community's supportive vibe is impossible to miss. Story 85. Being a sports parent, little Jimmy isn't going into the NFL, Tad. It's literally an entire identity, and the most of the parents are the ones who peaked in high school. And then they always meanie about how they spent all weekend at some tournament and how tough it is, like they didn't do all of that to themselves. Story 86. Wakeboarding. Being a douche seems to be required, and especially to own a boat. They ruin the shoreline and frequently harass others, all while blasting sheet music at concert level, usually rap or bro country. Story 87. Any kind of collector. In my country, bikers and cyclists smack of bro energy and elitism, photographers, travelers, and even good old reading. Think people drag their competitive natures and egos into their hobbies too. It stops being a hobby if you want to be a show-off. Obsession is also not a good look. I'm just here to read up on hobby ideas and be inspired. Story 88. Bicycling. Yes, bicycling. The people called roadies who dress like they are in the Tour de France are rude, arrogant, and elitist jerks here in Soyingia. Story 89. Soccer moms. I'm counting it as a hobby from the number that make their kids do it, even if their kids don't care. I coach and ref soccer, and the insane amount of kids that genuinely don't care, but their parents are pushing for things to get done is ridiculous. You'll have private training sessions with 2-year-olds, parents complaining because their kid didn't get enough playing time, even when the kid played the exact amount as everyone else, and started almost every game. Kids that show up to practice to tell me they don't even like playing in team sports, but their parents make them come, etc. It's never ending. Story 90. This thread has taught me that there are 2 types of hobbies that produce assholes. Rich people hobbies and hobbies that people take on specifically to make money. Story 91. Martial arts. Met some terrible people through online video games, but in martial arts, you take those people and give them the ability to cause physical damage to you. Don't get me wrong, I've met some incredible people through martial arts, but it's important to keep in mind that there are massive egos in martial arts, and some not-so-friendly people who want to hurt others because of the power trip they experience. Plus, some schools are cult-like and cliquish. I love Muay Thai and it transformed my body, but I changed as a person and generally became less optimistic and more